Okay, so we talked about introduction to anatomy. Now we move on to cells. Structure of a cell. What is in the cell that protects the cell? The entire cell has a what? A plasma membrane, or what we call cell membrane, right? We know that this membrane is a, what do you mean by bilayer of lipids? Can anybody explain to me? Yes? Okay, so remember, polar head and then what? Non-polar tail. You see this in the book, like this? Okay. A bilayer means two layers of phospholipids. What do you mean by polar means what? Does anybody tell me yes? It's hydrophilic. What is hydrophilic? What? Hydro means water. Philia. Latin word for what? Love. Hydrophilic means it loves water. What about the tail? Hydro what? Phobic. Tail. So we have two layers. But the heads are facing what? If this were the cell, this is the cell membrane. What do you call the fluid outside the cell? ECF. What do you call the fluid inside the cell? And we said, where do you find more water? Inside the cell or outside the cell? Inside the cell. Remember, we're made up of billions of neurons. And most of the water is found inside the cell because who needs the water? The cell. Can you just imagine the amount of effect dehydration would be on the cell when there is no water? The cell will be affected. The cell will die. Right? Okay? So ICF is much, much greater than what? ECF. Okay? Do you understand? Okay? So, under the word fluid compartments in the body, we said ICF and ECF. ECF may include your what? If this were a cell, another cell, what do you call the fluid in between the cells? It's called interstitial what? Fluid compartment. What do you call the fluid or water between the cells? Interstitial fluid compartment. Now, what else would be considered outside the cell? Are you familiar with the word plasma? Right? What is blood plasma? It's found in the blood. For example, if this is a blood vessel here, what does the blood contain? Cells and plasma. What is this plasma made of? Water. Have you ever seen blood? If we put blood in a centrifuge, you know what's a centrifuge for those who have taken chemistry? You can separate the cells from the plasma. Which one is the liquid part of the blood? The plasma. You separate the red blood cell, you separate the white blood cell. You're left with plasma. Is that plasma mostly made up of water too? But is it inside the cell? No. What about the cell inside the red blood cell? It's part of ICF. What about the cell of the fluid or water inside the brain cell, the muscle cell, the bone cells? All of them are ICF. What about the water inside the white blood cell? Intercellular fluid compartment. Do you understand? Okay? The bottom line, therefore, is that much of the fluid is here. Around 60-65% is intercellular fluid compartment. That's how important it is. Is that clear? Okay? So, we talk about the plasma membrane. The plasma membrane regulates the entry of substances into and out of the cell, right? Right? Okay? And that's one important characteristic. It also helps protect the cell. Right? It helps protect the cell. It prevents the water from coming out. It prevents dehydration. Now, what other organelles would you expect to find inside the cell? So let's say when I say some of them have membranes, some do not have membranes, right? For the membranous, that's the most common we often encounter. Under membranous organelles, the mitochondria. Now, why is mitochondria important? Yes?
Produce ATP.
And what is ATP?
And the energy. Energy for body.
What is it?
Energy. Adenosine.
Adenosine triphosphate, right? So, okay, so let's write down what you have told me. So you have mitochondria. And what is this associated with what?
ATP.
ATP production. And what is ATP for?
Adenosine triphosphate.
It's adenosine
Triphosphate.
triphosphate. And what does it do? Why is it important?
It's produce energy.
Energy, currency of the cell. In other words, you need this for the cell. What for? Why does the cell need energy?
To transport things.
What?
To transport.
Transport.
For
Okay.
Production.
What?
To use the nutrients on it and create.
So remember the word, have you heard the word metabolism?
Yes.
The sum of all the chemical reactions. Some reactions will produce energy, some also require energy, right? Including transport and all this thing, right? Okay. Can you give me any other form of membranous organelle?
Gold.
Okay, Golgi apparatus. What is Golgi for?
For proteins. No,
What's the key word that you need to know about Golgi apparatus?
transport of protein.
Huh? Packaging, exactly. What do you notice am I writing here? Am I writing keywords or important words? Yes, I am. Because are you expected to remember every single word? No, you can't. Okay? I might be out of focus in. Packaging of secretions. When you put protein, whatever secretions you have to form, right? Can you give me another one? Huh?
In the plasma.
ER. And there are two.
Rough and smooth.
Smooth and then what?
Rough.
And rough. ER. Okay? Which one contains ribosomes?
Rough.
Is ribosome membranous or non-membranous? Non-membranous, right? So rough contains ribosomes, and what is ribosomes for? Considering that it is a non-membranous organelle.
Produce proteins.
Huh? Okay, proteins. If you want to put the word synthesis, it's up to you. The key word is proteins. What about smooth ER? Does it have ribosomes? No ribosomes. And what is this for?
Lipids. Synthesis lipids.
Lipid. Synthesis, what else?
Carbohydrates.
Huh? Lipid, what else? Huh?
Carbohydrates.
Carbohydrate, what else? CHO is carbohydrate. What else? Steroids, very good. And what else?
Stores calcium.
Calcium storage, very good. Lipid, carbohydrates, steroids. In other words, protein will be on rough. Everything else, lipid. Because remember, our food nutrients are basically three. Carbohydrates, proteins, and what is lipid? Fats. You know what kind of food you eat, right? Either protein-rich food, fat-rich food, or lipid-rich food, carbohydrates, and of course steroids. And of course for calcium storage, right? Okay. What else can you give me as a membrane organelle? Membranous organelle? Huh? The what? Okay, what about the nucleus? What is inside the nucleus?
Yeah. Nucleus. Membrane.
What is the nucleus for?
DNA replication.
Huh?
DNA replication.
Okay, it is the control center of the cell. It is the control center of the cell. Why is it the control center of the cell? Huh? Anyone? Of course, it contains the chromosomes, but it contains the DNA. which determines who we are. Like me. Why do you think I have beautiful brown exotic skin?
Because of your
Thank God my
parents.
parents gave it to me. Right? Which makes me more protected against what? The ultraviolet rays of the sun. So this gentleman here, what is your name?
Andrew, you call me Ed.
Ed. Between Ed and me, who do you think will develop skin cancer? Ed or me? Huh? Good luck, Ed.
Oh,
That's what happens when you have fair skin.
I
Me,
know.
chances of me developing skin cancer is maybe 1%, but can I still develop skin cancer?
Yes.
Of course! Because I still have skin. Except it's beautiful and exotic and brown.
You're gonna get a brown cancer, don't worry.
The what?
You're gonna get brown cancer.
What is it?
Brown cancer. You said brown skin.
Yeah, yeah. So the thing is,
What's the best also?
if I do not go and, you know, the sunblock that my wife always wants me to put sunblock, it's okay. My wife has more fair skin than me, you know. Me, I don't care. Okay, son, get to me. I don't care. Right, of course, I'm just kidding. I should still protect myself, right? Now, the DNA. Can you imagine if I was born with blue eyes? With blonde hair? What do you think my father said? This is not my son. Not even Darth Vader would say, this is not I am not your father. Because we are who we are, right? Based on our genetic trait, right? Okay? That's why the reason why the nucleus is very important. Okay? Do you understand? So, the idea therefore is that when we're dealing with the cell, what about the non-membranous organelle? What are examples of these non-membranous organelles? We're talking about ribosomes already, right? What else? The what?
Cilia.
The cilia. Why is the cilia important? In the airways, do we need cilia?
Yes.
Yes, we do. What did they do? They move mucus from point A, point B to point out. Okay, so if this were your airways, so like this, they're found on the wall, like this. And they move in unison, you know. If this were the mucus, so pretend this is Dr. Gamo here, Dr. A, Dr. G. Mucus, this is the mucus. Then I move it from here to here, here to there. I need the mucus to move it out. So I can cough it out. What does smoking do? It destroys what? Destroys the cilia. So how many of you smoke? Okay, go ahead, continue smoking. Because it will destroy your cilia. You'll be a good patient. Suffering from COPD. Now I'm just joking, of course. Stop smoking! Because who will suffer? You or including me? Me, because I will get secondhand smoke. Every time I go to the parking space and people are there smoking. Hi, Dr. Gamo. I say, hi. What can I develop? Lung cancer. Second, COPD. I have a choice, either chronic bronchitis or emphysema. Imagine that. Some people don't smoke, they develop lung cancer. Remember the wife of Christopher Reeves? After Christopher Reeves died, she eventually died, I think 1 or 2 years later, of lung cancer. She didn't even smoke. So be aware of that, okay? Now, what else? Aside from cilia, aside from your ribosomes, what else can you think of? Yes?
Cytoskeleton.
Cytoskeleton is important in the cell structure and tissue structure. What else?
Flagella.
Hmm?
Flagella.
Flagella. Where is the flagella found?
On the cell surface.
Huh?
On the cell surface, it moves sperm.
Same as this.
It's a sperm. Has a tail. So think of me as the sperm. But this is my tail. Do the sperms have any feet to run?
No.
No, they only have what? A tail. So the tail allows them to what? Deambulate, right? During the sexual act, I hope nobody is a virgin here. If you are, close your eyes, okay? I'm just joking. When a man reaches his point of no return, and what is that? Climax, right? When a man reaches his point of no return during the sexual act, during penile penetration, and this is the fundus, this is the body of the uterus, this is what? Fallopian tube. This is the ovaries here, cervix here, and this would be what? The vagina. So during penile penetration, obviously the penis is down there. And guess what happens? When the man reaches its climax at point of no return, the sperm is released. And what would be the song? Please release me, let me go. Can you imagine? When the sperm is released, it's called ejaculation. They'll all be traveling at the same time. 100 million miles per second, I don't really know, okay? I need to be the first one, okay? I will be the first. Are they gonna swim? No. Freestyle or butterfly? No. So I would presume the best tail would be the one to make them go, you know? So I'll probably have I could sell to the sperm. Hey sperm, you want some of my chemicals? That could, you know, I'm just kidding. Imagine, so the sperm travels here, and who is waiting here in the fallopian tube? The egg wearing a bikini and said, honey, I'm waiting for you. Catch me if you can. Actually, penetrate me if you can, okay? Because the egg is there. Okay, who is really the first one? Oh my God, they're all up for me. And the egg, first sperm, if it's a Y-bearing sperm and the egg is X, a boy. It's an X-bearing sperm, the egg is X, XX, a girl. And they live happily ever after. In other words, did that tail have the sperm? Yes. It's called flagellum or tail, right? So the idea, therefore, is that these parts of the cell are important. For what reason? They have a specific function to play. Okay? Whether membranous or non-membranous organelles, they're important. They're parts of the cell, right? But the important thing is that you have to remember what it does. If I say powerhouse of the cell, which one would it be? If I say packaging of secretions, if I say protein synthesis, endoplasmic reticulum, because they contain what? Ribosomes. What if I say which organelle will be responsible for the manufacture of lipids, carbohydrates, or fats? Smooth ER. Endoplasmic reticulum. Do you understand? Okay? So that's what you need to know. Okay? We do not expect you to know everything, but at least the basic things about the cell. Right? Now, under the category of tissues, right? Remember the tissues. What are the 4 types of tissues? You have what? Epithelial first, followed by what? Connective, followed by muscle, and then what? Neural. Under epithelial, you can have different kinds, right? Now I know it's overwhelming, but the important thing here is that you can come up with a concept map like this. I think there's a lot of concept maps in that particular chapter, right? For example, under epithelial, there's supposed to be protective layers, right? If it says simple, it means only one layer of cell, right? See? So if I say so connective tissue, epithelial, under tissues, epithelial, connective, and then what? Muscle, and then what? Neural. Under epithelial, it could either be what? Simple or stratified. Simple means one layer of cells. Right? What about if it is stratified? 2 or more layers of cells. Okay? Now if I say, based on shape, which one is the flat cell? Squamous cell. What about if it's a squarish, three-dimensional figure, cuboidal? What if it's like a column? Columnar, right? So either squamous, cuboidal, or columnar cells, right? So let's say the skin. What kind of type of epithelial tissue do you find in the skin? Stratified squamous. What about the vagina? Have you ever been inside the vagina? Don't you forget, when you were born, as a baby, you were there. I don't know how long. Remember? You remember that time you were inside the vagina? But the birth canal, how long did you stay there? It depends on how fast the delivery is, right? What kind of epithelium was there in your mom's birth canal? Stratified squamous. Very good. Okay. Now, what about, where do you find transitional epithelium? Urinary what? Bladder. Why? Remember, the bladder can either be empty or full of urine. So the shape can change. The transitional is changed in shape. If the bladder is full of urine, what happens to the wall? It will be flat. The cells become flat because the cells are being stretched. On the other hand, if the bladder is empty, it becomes like more cuboidal rather than squamous, right? It's transitional. What about in your air sac? What kind of epithelium would you expect to find? What? Air sac. I'm not saying airway. Air sac. Alveolus. Yes? Huh? Why simple squamous? Correct answer. So this is your air sac, right? Trachea, bronchi, secondary bronchi, tertiary bronchi, bronchioles, air sac. Air sac. It's a capillary here, right? You need it to be what? Simple? Simple means what?
One layer.
One layer of what? Flat cells. Why? Because you have exchange of what?
Yes.
Gases like oxygen will diffuse from high to low to the red blood cell in the blood vessel, pulmonary capillaries. So it should be ideal that there should only be one layer of what? Flat cells. You understand? So it's the purpose of which is to what? Allow exchange of gases to occur where? In the air sac. What is found inside the air sac? Air. What passes to the airways? Air. What passes to the blood vessel? Blood. When you inhale, what do you bring with you?
Oxygen.
So oxygen will move from high to low. And what do you call that form of transport? Passive or active? Passive transport. What kind of passive transport? Diffusion. Diffusion, and it feels so good. Does this require energy if it's passive transport? No, it does not. On the other hand, every single cell in your body produces what? Carbon dioxide. So this goes into the pulmonary veins. In the pulmonary artery, you have what? CO2. There's a lot of CO2. What does CO2 do? From high to low. So what do you do with the CO2? You exhale. Why do you exhale the CO2? Because it is waste produced by the cells of your body. And when you exhale the carbon dioxide, who will benefit from the carbon dioxide that we exhale? The plants. Because they will convert CO2, water, sunlight, they convert that into what? So who provides oxygen to us? The plants, the trees. Are we going to cut our trees? We must be stupid and crazy. We cut all the trees, we deprive ourselves of oxygen, we will all die. See? We give them carbon dioxide, what do the plants give us in return? Oxygen. Do you understand? Okay? Is that clear? Okay? So there are different types under the word epithelial. Then, of course, under connective tissue, there's look at page 61. I think there's a nice illustration there on the different types. Is it 61 or 60 something? You went under the category of connective tissue. Is that what page is that?
Yeah, 61.
61. There is a nice page there on. Now I know it's a little bit overwhelming, but what they did here was, again, it's another example of what we call a concept map, right? Notice here how they separated under connective tissue proper, loose, and what? Dense connective tissue. Under fluid or liquid connective tissue, blood and lymph. And then supporting would be cartilage and bone. And then under loose, you have what? Areolar, adipose, reticular. Under dense, you have what? Dense regular, dense irregular, and of course what? Elastic. So you will notice there, each one of them are important. In the case of adipose, why is adipose important? It's fat, right? It's fat. Storage of energy. And in my lab, I showed some examples of this. Reticular tissues in the liver, kidney, I showed to my students for supporting framework, right? Liquid, I showed specimens in the lab for what? Blood. You saw the red blood cells, the white blood cells, the neutrophils, which becomes elevated in bacterial infection, right? And then we showed cartilage and bones, hyaline, elastic. Like this one here is an example of what? Elastic cartilage, right? Hyaline, tips of the bones, articular cartilage, right? Sternum, okay? And fibrous cartilage will be seen in your pubic symphysis. So in other words, cartilage and bones are examples of what we call supporting connective tissues. Now, muscles. There are 3 types of muscles. What are they?
Cardiac.
Skeletal, smooth, cardiac. Which one is found attached to bones? Skeletal. And this is attached to the bone via what we call tendons, or in some cases aponeurosis, right? Muscle, tendon, bone, right? Do you understand? Skeletal muscle are what we call voluntary. Why are they called voluntary?
Contraction or movement.
What is it?
Contraction or movement.
Can you please
Contraction or movement.
why are they voluntary muscles?
Because we think we want to use
We think, okay. What about if we think?
They just can't control.
So you can control with the mind, with the brain. See, for example, I want to bend my elbow, I need my bicep brachii muscle. So what gives the order? The frontal lobe of the brain, motor cortex. If I want to kick the ball, I need my quadriceps muscle, again controlled with the brain, it's called voluntary. What about the cardiac and smooth? Are they voluntary? No, they are not. They're both involuntary. Can you imagine the heart is made of cardiac muscle? Is it voluntary or involuntary? Why? Can you imagine if you want to commit suicide, can you tell the heart stop by just thinking? That's the fastest way to commit suicide, right? Thank God the heart muscle is not voluntary. It is what? Involuntary. Do you understand? Now what is the specific name? It's called myocardium, just like what Daniel said. Myo means muscle, cardio means what? Heart. If I say myocardial infarct, what does that mean? Infarct means death of the tissue. That means there's not enough oxygen and blood supply to the myocardium. Is that a heart attack? Yes. Remember, the heart is a muscle pump. It's mostly made up of myocardium. In the emergency room, if a patient comes to you like this, can he be suffering from a heart attack?
Yes.
Definitely. You don't ask him, sir, are you having a headache? No. He could be suffering from a heart attack. Is that a life-threatening condition? It could be. And he could go into cardiac arrest and he could die. Do you understand? Okay? Now, what about smooth muscles? Where do you find them? Digestive organs, the wall of the stomach, the wall of the small and large intestine. Okay? You understand? Are they voluntary or involuntary? Okay. So they're important, like for example, in the large intestine for what? What they call peristalsis. They make possible movement of food and stool. In the small intestine, esophagus, stomach, they move the food we eat after it's being digested or broken apart into small particles. But once they reach the large intestine, particularly the cecum, ascending colon, transverse, descending colon, sigmoid colon, what is found there? just plain stool, right? Feces. What do? The smooth muscles contract alternately, called peristalsis. What does it do? What does peristalsis mean? Wave-like contraction of the smooth muscles there. Stool goes up. Stool goes up. Okay? As the stool travels here, what do we do with the water inside the stool? Absorb into the wall. What does the wall have? Muscles and blood vessels and blood and plasma. So the water inside the stool goes back to the blood plasma, becomes part of your blood plasma. So as the stool travels here, stool goes up, stool goes to the left. What happened to the water content of the stool? Becomes decreased. Decrease water, decrease water, decrease water. By the time the stool comes out, it will be what? Solid stool, right? What happens in diarrhea? What happens to the peristalsis? Fast or very fast? Will there be enough time to absorb the water into the wall? So where does the water stay? Together with the stool. On the other hand, if you are constipated, what happens to the peristalsis? Fast or very slow? So will you have more than enough time to get the water out of the stool? So when we have a stethoscope, can we auscultate or listen to the bowel sounds? You put a stethoscope's earpiece in the ear. You put the diaphragm on the different quadrants, right upper, right lower, left upper, left lower quadrants. If the bowel sounds are hyperactive, it tells you that there is diarrhea. If the bowel sounds are what? Hypoactive bowel sound. Constipation. What about if it's normal active? Normal active. What about if there is absent bowel sounds? Bad or good? Very bad. It's called paralytic ileus. You see that in patients with a ruptured appendix and with peritonitis. Very bad. Don't worry, you will learn all of this when you go to core nursing and when you come to me in pathophysiology. Okay? Because what's very important is that you know what is normal and differentiate that from abnormal. Here we're just going to learn about normal. But I'm just preparing you to the fact that if you know what is normal, then you know what is abnormal. You understand? Okay? Neural tissue, very simple. Now before I forget, in smooth muscles, it's very important. In the bronchioles here, bronchioles, the wall has what? Smooth muscles, right? What kind of muscles do they either contract or what? Relax. If the smooth muscles in the airways or bronchioles relax, you have broncho what? Bronchodilation. If the smooth muscles here in the wall of the bronchioles contract, you have broncho what? Broncho what? Constriction. Which one is good? Constriction or dilation? When you dilate, the smooth muscles are relaxed, you open up the airway. When you bronchoconstrict, the smooth muscles here are contracting, you narrow the airway. Here, made of cartilage, trachea. Bronchus, cartilage. Secondary bronchus, cartilage. Tertiary bronchus, cartilage. Bronchioles, smooth muscles. Air sac, no muscles, except for what? Squamous air cells, simple squamous cells. The bottom line, therefore, is that you need to know about muscles too. A patient who's asthmatic, the muscles contract, you have bronchoconstriction and bronchomuscle spasm. You end up with what? It's called wheezing. Is he having a good time? That means all the airways are narrowing because the smooth muscles are all what? Millions of them at the same time. Can that asthmatic patient die? Yes. He could or she could die. See? So what do you think are we going to provide the patient then? A broncho what? Bronchodilator in the form of albuterol. Terbutaline. What do you think will be the mechanism of action of that drug? Will it make the muscles relax or make the muscles relax? In order to bring about what? See? It's not rocket science. In the field of medicine, we have to know the anatomy. When we go into pharmacology, if I give a bronchodilator drug, it simply means that this particular drug made the muscles relax, so that when the smooth muscles in the wall relax, you end up with bronchodilation, opening up the airway. So instead of puff, puff, oh, thank God, nurse, you saved my life. What did you give me? Ma'am, I gave you terbutaline. It's a bronchodilator. It made the smooth muscles in the bronchioles relax. It opened up the airway. I don't understand what you said, but thank God. From what school did you come from? I come from West Coast, the best in the West. Because you're supposed to be the best, right? Not just supposed to be, you are the best. And that's the reason why you have no choice to get an A in this class, right? You should. That's what you told me, right? You wanted to get an A, you should get an A. Okay? The skin. What are the layers of the skin? Yes? What are the layers of the skin? Huh? Epidermis, then? Then? Is the hypodermis part of the skin? Then why did you give me hypodermis? So theoretically, we only have two layers, epidermis and dermis. What does epi mean? Above the dermis. What is dermis? The true skin. Or the corium, C-O-R-I-U-M. What's the topmost layer here? Stratum what?
Cornea.
Then? Lucidum, then? Spinosum, then? Basale. Which one is found in the base? Basale or base. Which one is the topmost layer? Corneum. Then? Lucidum, then? Granulosum, then? CLGSB. It's up to a kind of mnemonic device you want. Corneum, lucidum, not Lucifer, granulosum, spinosum, basale. Which one is the topmost layer?
Cornea.
Corneum. Which one is found in the base? Very good. Okay. What's another name for basale? In some textbooks, they refer to this as what? Germinativum. Now, do you find blood vessels in the epidermis? Where do you find the blood vessels? In the dermis. Now, what is found below the dermis, which is not part of the skin? Hypodermis. What's another name for hypodermis? What does sub mean? What does cutaneous mean? Huh?
Skin.
So, is this part of the skin?
That's under skin.
It's under the skin. That's why it's called subcutaneous. Hypo, below dermis means true skin. There. But for all intents and purposes, we still have to discuss why. Without hypodermis, there will be no way upon which it can attach to. But technically speaking, you only have two layers, epidermis and dermis. Right? What are the accessory organs of the skin?
Nails.
Nails. What else? Hair. Hair follicle and hair, right? The glands, that's us what? Sebaceous gland.
Sweat gland.
What is another name for sweat? Sudoriferous what? Gland. What does the sebaceous gland secrete? Sebum or oil. What does the sweat gland secrete? Sweat. Of course. What's another name for sweat gland? Sudoriferous gland. Which one is the most common type of sweat gland? Merocrine or eccrine? Eccrine. What is that for? Why do we need our eccrine glands?
More generalized. It's more generalized over the body and help reduce
High temperature.
What does it do? Yes?
Temperature regulation.
Temperature regulation. And whenever you play basketball, you feel the heat. What does the eccrine sweat gland do? Secrete sweat. What is it going to secrete? Sweat. What is sweat? Water. Will that have a cooling effect on your hot, sexy booty? Yes? Why are you laughing? You don't think my booty is sexy? When I play basketball, I perspire a lot. It's because of the eccrine glands. What about the merocrine? Where do you find mostly the merocrine glands? The armpit. Are they the ones that give you a viscid secretion that become odoriferous? Especially if you do not take a bath. The good news is that I took a bath today. So the merocrine glands gives you that typical body odor. And the secretion there is not more watery. It's more of viscid. V-I-S-C-I-D. Okay, go home tonight. Do not take a bath for one day. And get the secretion here. And perspire. Compare under the mic. I'm just kidding, of course. With your nose. Dr. Gamo is correct. Okay. And I know you know it already, right? Have you ever tried trying to smell yourself? Oh shit. Okay. Okay. Oh stool. Okay. The bottom line is that it's because of that, right? Now, in relation to these, which layer? So these glands are here, right? They go like this with the ducts. Remember, your sweat gland together with your what? Oil glands or sebaceous glands are exocrine glands. Why are they exocrine? Because they have ducts. If the gland is here, there's a duct. Sweat, skin pore, perspiration. If it's oil, same thing. A duct is present to allow the oil come to the surface of the skin. That's why you become oily. Right? Endocrine glands, what happens? No ducts, like your endocrine organs. Thyroid gland, pancreas, right? Adrenal gland. The glands are secreted via the blood circulation, the hormones. Okay? Now, which among this layer of the corneum, lucidum, granulosa, spinosa, and basale is made up of living cells?
Oh no.
Made up of living cells. Yes? Basale. The answer is correct. Why? Why are the cells alive here? And why are the cells here are dead? The answer is correct, my dear. What is your name?
Amy.
Amy. What's the answer? Amy.
Well, I know that they die as they grow up.
Why do they die as they grow up? So let's answer the first question first. Why are these cells alive? What causes them to be alive? Amy? Yes? What's your name?
Dan.
Dan?
There's no longer blood getting to it.
Huh? Are there blood vessels here, Dan? Yes or no?
No.
There is none. So, how come these cells are alive, Dan? If there are no blood vessels there. Where do you find the blood vessels, Dan? In the dermis. So, are there blood vessels here? If there, what? In the dermis.
Yes.
The dermis is right below this one, right? If there's any blood vessels there, is there any blood inside the blood vessel? Yes? Okay, think of that. Come to think of that. What keeps the cells alive despite the fact there are no blood vessels and there are blood vessels with blood in it?
They get a nutrition because of
What?
get a nutrition from the blood.
The blood may have nutritional requirements, yes. Oxygen.
It's attached to the
Huh?
basal lamina.
What?
It's attached to the basal lamina.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
Permeability of the cells still less.
So remember, how can we transport substances?
Oh, active.
Active or passive? So what is that called?
Diffusion.
Of course. Now remember, no blood, a lot of blood. Is it possible therefore for the oxygen and all those nutrients to diffuse from high to low? Yes, it could. Do you understand? Now because they diffuse, what will diffuse? The oxygen, what else? Glucose, the nutrients. Are the cells alive in the basal layer through diffusion? which is a form of passive transport. Yes, it is. Correct? And the question now is, if they are alive, can they divide?
Yeah.
What do you call the cell division? Mitosis. Remember the different I have to help you memorize the different phases, right? Interphase, then prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, right? The important thing is that when the cells divide here, because they can undergo mitosis, when the cells divide, what do they do with the older cells? They push them what? Up. Up. The further they go up, the farther away from the source of what? Oxygen and glucose, the cells will die. Do you understand? The cells who are here will be alive. But the moment they divide, they push the older cells, they die. They die. Cornified. Do you understand? Is that clear? Okay. Now, of course, we talk about all these different glands. We talk about the importance of the skin. In fact, the skin is the largest organ in your body. Do you know that? If you burn your skin, what is the skin able to do? Protect your body from what? Organisms, from pathogens. A patient who develops a burn injury, will he be prone to infection?
Yes.
What about dehydration? Yes? Because now the fluid will ooze from the burn injury. So these are two things we watch out for in a patient with a burn injury which damages the skin. In a first degree burn, a second degree burn, third degree burn, and not only that, which parts of the body are affected. Right? In burn injuries, you take care of one, fluid resuscitation, fluid replacement because you lose a lot of fluids. Number two, clean the wound, get rid of dead tissue, and make sure there is no bacterial contamination because that wound, there's a break in the skin, therefore that area could easily become contaminated and become infected, and that patient can go into septic shock and die. And because of the loss of fluids, they also go into hypovolemia. Because they will lose water, they become dehydrated too. And the first organ affected usually is the kidney. That's why the urine output will be affected. Less than 30 ml per hour is abnormal. Normal urine output should be 30 ml or more. That's the reason why we always watch out for urine output. What's the normal urine output every hour? 30 ml per hour. Okay? Is that clear? Okay, we'll end there. We just finished the discussion on the skin. And I'll give you a 5-minute break to go to the restroom, which I need to go to. And we'll have the quiz within 5 minutes, okay?